Okay, we have a third example. I'd like to evaluate the following function. R at x equals x cubed minus 1 in the numerator divided by the quantity 7 plus x in the denominator, and simplify as appropriate. So our first one we have is r at 2. And again, this is fairly straightforward. So to do r at 2, remember we substitute in 2 every place we see the x. So remember the function, if I slide back up here, the function was x cubed minus 1 divided by 7 plus x. So instead of x, I substitute in 2, so I get 2 cubed minus 1 over 7 plus 2. If I do the math out, 2 cubed minus 1 is 7. 7 plus 2 is 9. Second one, r at h. Well, r at h, again, we substitute in h every place we see the variable. So instead of x, we put h. So that gives us h cubed minus 1 over 7 plus h. There might be some factoring we can do, but I'm going to tell you quite frankly, it's not going to result in any form of a simplification, so let's just leave it as it is. Third problem, third example. R at h minus 2, so it's r at the quantity h minus 2. So again, we go into where the variable x was, and every place we saw that, we substitute in h minus 2. And again, remember the function was r at x equals x cubed minus 1 over 7 plus x. So I'm going to take out the x and in each case put h minus 2. So here's my x. So I put h minus 2. Remember, I need to cube it. So I do h minus 2 quantity cubed minus 1. And then 7 plus, and that's where my x was, the quantity h minus 2. Now what I need to do is simplify this out. The denominator simplifies out pretty easily, and I would imagine that you can all pretty easily get h plus 5. But the issue comes in, how do I do h minus 2 cubed if I want to multiply that out? And so remember, the way I can do that is take h minus 2 multiplied by h minus 2, and then multiply it a third time by h minus 2. So if I do that, remember if I take, say, these two and multiply them, I do the old first outer inner last, and if I do that I get h squared. Outer is minus 2h, inner is minus 2h, lasts plus 4. So I get h squared minus 4h plus 4. Now I need to multiply that by h minus 2 another time, and I wrote the answer out, but let's actually take a look at this. So I'm going to do it by long multiplication. So I have h squared minus 4h plus 4 multiplied by h minus 2. And I prefer long multiplication personally. I don't care if you want to do this out more linearly across your paper, but I find I'm more accurate with long multiplication. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take h and multiply it by everything. So if I do that, it gives me h cubed minus 4h squared plus 4h. So I did everything in the numerator multiplied by h. Now I'm going to do everything in the denominator multiplied by minus 2. And the nice part about this is I can line up the like terms. So h squared multiplied by minus 2 is minus 2h squared. Minus 4h multiplied by minus 2 is plus 8h. And minus 2 multiplied by plus 4 is minus 8. And so now I get h cubed minus 6h squared plus 12h minus 8. And you'll notice that's what I have over here. And then don't forget to slap on the minus 1 and put that all over h plus 5. And if I do just that combination of minus 8 minus 1 gives me minus 9. Now notice I picked a different example. I actually did r at h minus 2. And this is what happens if I only do the r at h and I subtract 2. So now, remember I already did r at h. That was h cubed minus 1 over 7 plus h. So that's the whole r at h piece. And then subtract 2. Now, because I think it's kind of neat and important to do, let's get this all as a single fraction. And so remember, to get as a single fraction, we need a common denominator. So let's write them both as fractions first. So 2 over 1 will make the number 2 as a fraction. And remember, the common denominator, when the two pieces, the two denominators are not like, the common denominator ends up being the product of the two. So my common denominator is 7 plus h. So remember, in order to get 7 plus h in this denominator, what I would do is I would multiply in the denominator by 7 plus h, multiply it in the numerator by 7 plus h, really multiplying that second fraction, that 2, by the number 1. It's just 1 is written as 7 plus h over 7 plus h. So if I do that, and then put these all into one fraction, that gives me h cubed minus 1, there's my first piece, minus, and then 2 multiplied by 7 plus h, all over 7 plus h. And now if I just neaten things up a little bit, h cubed minus 1, when I distribute the negative 2, that gives me negative 14 minus 2h. If I collect my like terms, that gives me h cubed minus 2h, and then minus 1 minus 15 is, or minus 14 is minus 15, so I get h cubed minus 2h minus 15 all over 7 plus h. Notice that didn't give me the same answer as the previous one, so having the minus 2 in the parentheses and having the minus 2 outside of the parentheses gives me two completely different answers. The moral of the story is be careful. Make sure you read the question and compute what's being asked for. The last example wants me to do r at h minus r at 2, and recall I did both r at h and r at 2 before, so I'm not going to go through that piece. So what I have here, if I want to have r at h, there's my h cubed minus 1 over 7 plus h. My r at 2 was 7/9, so I have h cubed minus 1 over 7 plus h minus 7/9. I'm going to again do the common denominator piece, because I think that you can probably use a little bit of practice with that. So let me just erase these. And if I want to do the common denominator, remember these two are not like. 7 plus h and 9 are not multiples of each other. They don't share a common factor. And so the common denominator becomes the product of them. So the first fraction has 7 plus h, but it doesn't have the 9. So I need to multiply in the denominator by 9, but remember what I do to the denominator, I have to do to the numerator. The second fraction has the 9, but not the 7 plus h. So I multiply by 7 plus h in the numerator and the denominator. Remember again, what I do to the denominator, I have to do to the numerator. Now I multiply out a little bit. 9 times h cubed minus 1 gives me 9h cubed minus 9. And then 7 times 7 plus h, but don't forget the subtraction, gives me minus 49, and then we distribute the minus again, minus 7h. If I clean this up a little bit, it gives me 9h cubed minus 58 minus 7h over the 9 times 7 plus h in the denominator. You could multiply that out, or it wouldn't be necessary. One of the things you might have noticed I did here is I have 7h not written in the middle as I did in the previous example when I had the 2h. I am not going to be terribly choosy about the order that you write things in. If you want to write them in decreasing power, that's fine. If you don't, that's going to be fine as well.